Welcome on in. Welcome on in. Gonna do a little live stream. It's an exciting day for Utah football. This is National Signing Day 2026. Welcoming their commits in the 2026 class. Big day for Utah. Obviously excited to be doing a live with all you guys here. So again, if you guys have questions, comments, please feel free to use the chat. Make sure to highlight those throughout the day. Just going to run through the class, run through what we're seeing today, watch some film, share some opinions, some analysis. Really excited for Utah's 2026 class. So, yeah, looking forward to it. And it didn't take long for the first question to pop in about the Pula twins. Shout out to Max. Got it in there quick. Got it in there real quick. What's the latest? What's the latest? We'll see. All right. Yeah, obviously, again, a big day for Utah, welcoming in their 2026 class. This is an interesting class. Currently, it's checking in the mid-30s. I think on both 24/7 Sports and Rivals, or on 3, whatever they're wanting to be called. And, that's interesting because this isn't the biggest class. But there's some good pieces, some really good pieces in this class, highlighted and headlined by Kelvin Obot, Utah's highest rated, highest ranked commit in program history. This is a big one. And, don't take this for granted just because it's not a receiver, it's not a quarterback. Utah is all about the trenches, and their top 2 signees in the class, Obot and Mataalii Benjamin out of Lehigh, just continue to emphasize that point for Utah, is that it all starts in the trenches for them. And to have those 2 in the class headlining this group, I think is really significant, given the fact that, Utah's success this season hinged largely on the offensive line this year. So to add another 2 blue chip offensive tackles, that's a big accomplishment for Utah. Another big signee, LaMarcus Bell. Obviously, he doesn't have the rating that a blue chip rating, but to fend off Oregon, to keep him in the class where LaMarcus Bell, obviously hailing out of Oregon, that's a big win for Utah to fend off the Ducks, because when the Ducks want somebody, they usually get them. So that's a big win for Utah as well. Obviously, the drama. There's drama. It's been good drama. It's been bad drama. It's been interesting. And if you hear my phone popping off, I've got some text going on. Trying to stay up to date as best I can. But yeah, let's talk about it. So obviously, with the first question, Pula twins. Yeah, we'll see. I expect them to flip and end up at BYU. It's been interesting. I know the Twins have been telling Utah all the right things, but I just think there's an overwhelming sense that they are going to flip. And with that, I think it's important to understand that I think it's Jaron Pula. Jaron Pula is currently dating the daughter of Kalani Sitake. That sort of influence is always powerful, and in that. But I do think the Twins will end up flipping, but we'll see. That's currently how it stands. But Utah still held out hope that they could fend off the Cougs and keep them in the class. But with that, what Utah has been doing has been making a big push to flip Salesi Moa, the number 1 player in the state of Utah from Tennessee, and hoping to add him into the class. So that's Utah's big move this cycle, is potentially Salesi Moa. And he's the type of player that I think is would make a significant impact for the Utes. And obviously he could be another 2-way star. He played 2 ways all throughout high school. He's a little bit more conditioned for it. And so I think there's a decent chance. And what's been interesting this week, I had conversations with people over the last couple I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple days. It's been a doozy. I think I've got the ice roller for the swelling. I've got that because I had bags under my eyes pretty bad this morning. It's been a couple days, guys. It's been a doozy of a couple days. But what was I talking about? Oh, Moa. I was talking about Moa. But yeah, Utah's been making a big push. And from where it started on Monday, and that's not where it started for Utah. This has been something that they've continued to work on behind the scenes. But when I started talking to folks on Monday, there was about a 30% chance, according to one source, that this happens. That's gone up over the last couple days, where now it's hovering above 50%. But obviously, things can change. So it's been trending the right way. Utah's been making a big push to add Moa to the class, and that could be a pretty significant addition to bolster Utah's 2026 class. So that's sort of the up-to-date drama, the Pula twins and Salesi Moa. Obviously, things trending one way for one storyline there, and things trending a positive way for the other. Utah did add a commit today as well in Fameitau Siale, 6'4", 250-pound defensive end from Washington. Was committed to Michigan State. Adding him today, I think, is a nice little add. And he's got the frame to move inside, and I think that's where he's going to end up. And he's got the ability. I think he reminds me a little bit of Pupu Sepulona, where he's got some athleticism, he's got some quickness, he can get into gaps, he can shoot gaps, he can be disruptive. But size, I think, is the big thing for him, and that's going to allow him to be pretty dynamic defensive lineman, regardless of where he ends up. But I think he ends up inside. So that's where things stand there. They flipped one Michigan State commit, and potentially, with Colin Campbell, Utah's continued to stay in touch there. Don't have the best feel for that one, but I know that Utah's maintained contact on that as well. So those are your storylines to keep an eye on. And obviously, Utah is always good for an additional surprise as well. But the big one for Utah is Salesi Moa. It is real. Things have been trending positively for the Utes on that front. But we'll see. We'll see. I think it's going to take a lot to get him to flip, because I know that Moa was pretty set on playing out of state, playing in the SEC. But the draw of playing home, at home, in front of friends and family, and with NIL being what it is, I think that can be a big factor for Utah here. So currently, Moa is not expected to sign today, but I think that's an encouraging thing for Utah. And I think we'll see. So we'll hold on to on there and see what happens there. But that's sort of the latest. And like I said, with stuff like this, updates come quick and fast. So I'm checking my phone pretty regularly here. But that's what we've got. So keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. What do you mean? What the F is going on? Let's see here. Yeah, I already talked about it. Sorry, going through the chat. All right, let's get to it. Let's talk through some of this class, and let's start here with our guy, Kelvin Obot. Obviously, the big signee, 5-star signee for Utah. We're going to watch some film on him. Really excited about Obot. I think he's going to come in and contend right away for a starting spot on the offensive line next year. What he's been able to do over the last year, with the strides that he's made as an offensive tackle in terms of his technique, his fundamentals, I think is a big thing for Utah. He's got the raw athletic ability. He's got the size. He's currently, I think, hovering around 285. So he's going to come in a little bit ready to go, more so than maybe Spencer Fano was, in terms of being at the size he needs to play right away. I think that's going to be big for him, especially as he gets into the program and starts to work on his game with the strength and conditioning staff. But this is a big one. He's a guy that can come in and compete right away for a starting job, and I fully expect him to. So love the improvements that he's made in his game. And so let's go ahead. I'm going to get his film pulled up here. We'll just have some fun watching his highlight tape. So this is a big one. Again, the highest rated commit Utah has ever signed. And I think he's going to come in and get it going. So pulling up the film here. Let me change this here, get my ugly mug out of the way. All right, here we go. Obviously with Obot, left tackle, that's where you need to look. From his junior to senior year, just the improvement with his technique, his fundamentals, he's more consistent, he's more technically sound. He moves so well for a kid his size. He's flexible. And I think the most exciting thing about him is just the natural power that he plays with. He's an overwhelming presence, at the high school level. He's just bullying kids, on the football field. So I think that's sort of the difference here. When you talk about comparing him to Utah's other highest rated tackles, Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, who both committed and signed in 2023. I think Kelvin Obot is kind of the perfect blend of the two, where Obot, he's got the athleticism, the overall mobility of the two. He's not as technically sound as Spencer Fano was, because Fano was just an absolute technician. He was I think he's the most technically sound offensive lineman that I've ever watched in high school, and that continued to play out as he got into Utah. But the improvements he's made on that front, being technically sound, is really, really impressive. And adding that to his overall mobility, his power, I think it's a great blend. And I think he's going to be a guy that starts year one and follows the same sort of path that Spencer Fano did, potentially becoming, all conference, all American freshman type stuff. And I think he's got that potential. I think he is a true blue chip prospect, and he's going to be a guy that anchors the offensive line for the next few years, in my opinion. So this is a big one for the Utes, is landing Obot, and he's a guy that Utah fans should not take for granted. You should still be fired the F up about this kid, because he is that good. He's going to come in. He's going to make his presence felt right away. So this is a big one. Obviously a 5-star commit. And I think, according to some services, he is the highest rated commit in the Big 12. So that's a big thing for Utah as well. So love what they've got here in Obot. And again, important to keep in mind, Jordan Gross being his head coach at Fruitland High School. That's a big thing. That's a big deal for him. And that's what's allowed him to make the improvements that he has year over year. So he is going to enroll early. He will be here in January. He'll be going through winter workouts. He'll be here for spring ball. And I think that's going to be big for him as well. All right, let me get this set up here. We'll transition to Mataalii Benjamin. Sorry, folks. Let's see. We got some man, all y'all guys asking about the Pula twins. You're late. I already spilled the tea. I already spilled the tea on the Pula twins. But I saw a question about Ike Garcia. We'll see. What's been going on with Ike is he's just been dealing with injuries way too often. So as long as he stays healthy, I think he'll be able to compete. But the question is whether he can stay healthy, and that's kind of the concern with him. So if he's healthy, that's a big thing for him. But he's got to prove that he can stay healthy. So we'll see. We'll see on that one. Trying to get to Benjamin's page here. All right. All right, next one, Mataalii Benjamin. This is a big one, a big flip for Utah back in November, flipping him ultimately from Minnesota. uh, 4-star offensive tackle out of Lehigh. Just great blend, size, length, athleticism, flexible for his size. He's got the frame to really add a ton of mass to his frame and become just an overwhelming presence along the offensive line. I think he's going to need some time. You know, he's not going to be the same sort of instant impact offensive tackle that an Obot or a Fano was, but very similar to Lomu, where you give him a year in the program, and that's going to really help him, make the transition, speaking to the physicality of the trench warfare at the college level. That's what Benjamin is going to need. He's going to need time to develop a little bit physically, but man, you love the potential here. You love the frame to add mass and to get to where he needs to be physically to be that sort of dominant offensive tackle as well. So this is a big one, and when you watch his film, you see the overall mobility, you see the commitment to his technique as well. I think he's going to be a guy, like I said, similar to Lomu, who probably redshirts his first year in the program, but getting into year 2 and year 3, he'll be an impact player for Utah along the offensive line. So let me pull up the film here. Let me get my ugly mug out the way. And Benjamin plays right tackle, so a nice little compliment there to Obot. I think that's going to be the combination for these two is Obot at left and um, and Benjamin at right. I think these two have potential to be another really dynamic duo, Obot and Benjamin. Um, Love the overall mobility. Again, being 6'7", it's not always easy to get into your stance, to play with a good base, to be mobile. But Benjamin is athletic. He's flexible. He can play from a good um, place of strength and power. And he's made improvements. He's improved his mobility. Obviously, being that big at that young an age, it can be difficult to move around your sophomore and junior year. But he really looks so much better as a senior, and I think he's going to be a guy with a year in the program that's going to be ready to go, in year 2 and year 3. So love what they've got with him here. And again, this was a big win, flipping him from Minnesota. Um, that's a big thing for the Utes and Jim Harding. It's another blue chip prospect along the offensive line. And when you look at this overall offensive line haul, really impressive with what they've been able to do, bringing in two blue chip guys that can come in right away and make an impact. And then you've got a couple of developmental guys in Moses Sparks and Rowdy Pierce, who I think are going to be fan favorites given their play style and the way that they play, in the trenches. These guys are physical guys and really do a lot to do that. So Utah focused on what they needed to, which was addressing the offensive line. Obviously, Utah is going to be saying goodbye to a handful of guys along the interior in Tanoa Togiai, Jaron Kump, and Kamoko Fisi. Spencer Fano very likely going to the NFL. And then Caleb Lomu, there's a chance that he comes back, which would be a significant boost to Utah's outlook in 2026. But more likely than not, it sounds like Lomu will be going to the NFL. So Utah's going to be starting over basically completely in the along the offensive line. And so to add this offensive line group, I think is a great way to rebuild the depth that you're going to need. And then, moving forward, talking about the offensive line, that's going to be a priority for the Utes in the transfer portal is, bringing in some offensive linemen with experience that can come in and compete right away. So that's what we've got going on here is, with Benjamin and Obot. Really like what Utah has in these two. These guys are going to be really important pieces to Utah's offensive line and the future there. Let's get to I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat. You already gave the update on the Pula twins, Moa, things trending positively there. Nate, I agree. Same, dude. Same. Yep. I got to get back on the diet, man. uh Questions, thoughts. What do you guys got? What do you guys feel about this class? How excited are you for this class? Who are some of your favorites? Who do you want to watch film on? I can run through the entire class. I can pick things apart if you guys want, but I'd be curious who you guys want to watch, who you guys want to hear about. I've got plenty to talk about, but certainly want to make sure that I'm keeping you guys involved. Like I said, I already talked about address the Pulu twins and the Mo situation. One is trending the wrong way, one is trending the right way. So we'll see. We'll see on that front. But questions, comments, who you guys want to hear from, who you guys want to hear about, and we'll keep it moving there. Couple of developmental guys that I want to talk about here. Let's get to these guys. Preston Pitts. He was the first commit in the class this year. I think he's going to be a guy listed at linebacker. I see him as a hybrid, a defensive end linebacker type. He can play off ball. He can play off the edge. Love his frame. 6'4", 215 pounds at the moment. I think he can get up to 250 and move around pretty comfortably. That's where it's going to kind of determine where he ends up playing. Is how much mass he's able to put on while preserving his athleticism. I think he's the type that is better suited. He's more comfortable attacking the backfield. He really shines there. I think he can be a pretty disruptive presence off the edge. And if he commits there, I think that's going to be his best position. But again, currently signed to Utah as a linebacker. Him and Colton Swan have developed a really strong relationship. He's excited to get up here. He loved, visiting Utah a couple times this year. He always enjoyed being up here. And I think this is going to be a guy that will be a big presence for Utah on the defensive side of the ball in due time. I think he's going to need some time to develop physically and, round out his game, get to where he needs to be in the playbook and all that sort of stuff. But he's a guy that I'm really excited about. When you talk about his frame, his athleticism, where his strengths are, and how that marries with Utah's scheme and identity on the defensive side of the ball, I think he'll be, a similar presence potentially, to a Logan Fano, to a Connor O'Toole, that type of player, 6'4", long, lanky, type of edge player. If he embraces that, but he can, like I said, he can play off ball as well. So I like him attacking the line of scrimmage, getting downhill, and being disruptive in the backfield. And I think that's where he's best at. Unfortunately, he didn't play much his senior season. He only got to play 2 games before suffering an injury. But you look at his production over the course of his career, over 230 tackles, over 7. I think he finished with 17 and a half sacks, about 25 tackles for loss, as a sophomore and junior. And a lot of that came his junior season alone. So productive player, again, didn't get to play more than 2 games this year before suffering an injury, which is tough. But he's going to be a guy that I think, give him a year or two, he's going to be someone that'll start making some noise on the defensive side of the ball. So love that. Love what Utah's got there. And another player that I think fits the same mold, where Pitts was the first commit in the class, one of the more recent commits in the class, PJ Takitaki, similar guy, similar type of player, a defensive end linebacker hybrid type, more defensive end though, 6'3", 230 pounds. Really excited for him, to add him to the class. He's currently the highest rated defensive commit signee in the class. And with this, similar game to Pitts, where he's really, really good attacking the backfield, being disruptive, and creating chaos. Played for Lehigh this season and was really, really disruptive. Finished with a lot of production. And I think he's going to be, a nice developmental piece in that room as well. Where you get into year 2 with him, that's where he's going to start to hit his stride, in my opinion. And I think he can be a pretty disruptive presence. So these two combined, you've got some flexibility, some versatility with Pitts and Taki in this defensive end linebacker room. Really like what Utah's done here along the defensive line. Let me see if I can pull up some PJ Taki film. Let me check the phone real quick here. All right. Shout out to Jalen Johnson. I need to text that fool, see if he's still committed. I'll check on that today for you guys. I do think there will be some good news coming this week, the rest of the week, beyond recruiting and beyond anything else. I think there will be good news in terms of what it means for 2026. I'm excited for what's to come. It sounds like good things are happening behind the scenes up on the hill. So, anyways, PJ Taki, again, 6'3", 230-pound linebacker edge type, really disruptive. Love the physicality he plays with. He's not the biggest cat, but he plays with violence. He's got some good bursts, uses his length well, and I think he's going to be a nice physical presence. Good, good overall game. Got a text. Okay. Oh yeah. Agree. 4K. It does have a nice ring to it. Yeah, I agree. Good bloodlines. Good bloodlines. He's the cousin of Taki from BYU, or the nephew, not cousin, the nephew of Taki from BYU. So obviously NFL bloodlines. And you like that. You always like to add that type of potential to the room. So again, I like what Utah's done here with the defensive line, bringing in Pitts and Taki again, that hybrid type of role. They could play linebacker, could play edge. Taki more of an edge presence for sure. So like what they've got here. Someone asked about LaMarcus Bell. Let's get to that. All right. Let's see here. Before I do that, though, let's just recap. All right. So here's what I think for Utah. Couple of instant impact guys in this class. Obviously, Kelvin Obot. I think he is the biggest impact player in this class. Again, just at his size, 285 pounds, 6'5", great movement, great mobility, great athleticism, power, explosiveness, good fundamentals. I think he's going to be able to come in right away and make a significant impact for Utah in year one. Couple of guys, a Cole Bishop type of impact player where maybe it doesn't happen right away, like an Obot, in my opinion, but similar to like a Cole Bishop who came on over the course of his freshman season. I think Asa Nyalier out of Orem, I get the same sort of vibes from Yalier as I did Cole Bishop, right? Mid three star type of kid, but when you watch the film, you're just watching a football player make football plays, and that tends to bode well for a football team. Is football players making football plays, but the dude is just overall productive. Always finds his way to the ball, whether it's making interceptions, PBUs, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, whether it's returning kickoffs for touchdowns. This dude is just an overall football player. And I think having those types of playmaking instincts, right? It's easy to sort of just take it for granted. Sometimes we get so caught up. Sorry about the burps. Um, Sometimes we get so caught up in the measurements and the star ratings and rankings that you just forget you need to watch the film and watch these guys play football. And watching Yalier all year long, he just has those playmaking instincts where he finds his way to the ball more often than not and makes an impact. And so for me, adding him to the defensive secondary, I think he finds a way to make an impact in year one over the course of the season, because those instincts, man, they're just they're special, and he finds a way to make a consistent impact, and that bodes well. So I think he can be pretty dynamic. I think he can be an impact player. Now, I'm not trying to put high expectations on him. I think give him time, and as we get into the second half of the season, yeah, Ryan, I think you make a great comparison. Sione Vaki, right? Remember him returning from his mission. He didn't start to make a impact until the second half of the season. I think it was after the Washington State game in 2022 where Vaki started to get pretty consistent playing time. And then, by the end of the season, right, you get into that Pac-12 championship game against USC, and Vaki was making plays left and right on the defensive side of the ball. So I think Nyalier has similar qualities, maybe not the same sort of athlete that Vaki was, but same overall football instincts where he could potentially play both ways. But I think he is going to be a stud in the defensive secondary. So I think he's an impact guy. And then LaMarcus Bell, I would not be surprised to see him get some playing time in year one. With what he's been able to do at Lake Oswego in Oregon, big time Mekhi Bernard vibes. Love what he does. Obviously, wearing number 2, it helps with the comparison, but similar size at 6 foot, 190, 195 pounds. Great athlete. He runs track, just super productive. I think he finished with over 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns this season, and did so while sitting out most of the second half in a lot of his games his senior season. I think he can come in and potentially earn some reps in year one at running back, which would be pretty significant in this offense under Jason Beck. So I think those are kind of the impact players, in my opinion, in this class. And then some really promising developmental players that I'm excited for. I already mentioned one of them, Preston Pitts. I think he can be pretty dynamic along the defensive line. And then a couple guys, Moses Sparks, Rowdy Pierce, those are guys you get into year 2 and year 3 in the program and in this developmental program under Harding and with Isaac Asiata in the strength and conditioning program. I think those guys will be contributors, as they get to that upperclassman status. And then the defensive secondary, I actually really like what Utah's betting on in Dylan Waters and Major Hitchen, 2 guys that are taller at 6'1" and 6'2". 180, 190 pounds. I think Hitchen is actually, probably smaller than that, but Dylan Waters is, 180 pounds. Good track athlete. These guys are tall, they're long, similar to Blake Cotton. And I think they fit well with what Utah likes to do, playing man coverage. It's always going to be a process with these freshmen getting acclimated to the demands that Coach Shaw has, in the secondary at cornerback and playing man coverage. It's a demanding position, but I like what Utah has in these 2 to be developmental guys that you keep them around. You get into year 2 and year 3. That's where you start to see the dividends. So again, I know we're all focused on the impact guys, and rightfully so, but Utah still continues to build their foundation of their roster based on guys with those developmental qualities. Where you get into those second, third years, that's when you start to see the strides being made and impact being made on the field. So I like those 2. as developmental guys, and then a couple other superlatives here. Again, the we had a lot of these guys this year, but the guy they told you not to worry about award, to me, that's Isaiah. That's Isaiah Isanyalie. I think he's going to be the guy that you just sort of overlook him. He's got the 87 rating. It's just one of those where it's like, it's not high enough to where you're super excited. Then you look at his offer sheet, you see some good offers, you get a little bit more excited. But it's when you pop on the film, you watch his tape, and you just get really, really excited watching him play football. I think he's going to be an impact player. To me, he's the guy that nobody's really talking about that should be garnering more talk. Obviously, the headliner of the class is Kelvin Obot, being the highest rated commit in program history. He'll be an impact player day one, in my opinion, and I think a big one for the Utes. Maybe the most underrated, underappreciated is Gary Mitchell. What Colton Swan has done in that linebacker room, bringing in talent. Mitchell has the sort of diversity in his game where he's comfortable in coverage. He can play man, he can play zone, he can tack the line of scrimmage. He's going to need time to develop. He's a little bit lean for linebacker to come in and play right away, but I think he's just another in the long line that Swan has brought in over the last couple of years to keep that depth strong. And eventually, I think Mitchell is going to be an impact player at linebacker for the Utes. So let's get back to some film here. I wanted to get LaMarcus Bell up here so we can watch some of this film. "25 TDs. I said 15. I shorted him 10. I'm an idiot." Ooh, good question, Mailer Tade. I'll get to that here. Let's watch some LaMarcus Bell film real quick, but I'll get to that question here in a little bit. That's a good question. I've got it starred, so I'll get back to it. But again, I want you guys to think Mekhi Bernard when you watch Bell and just kind of see the comparison. You see a kid that he's got the athleticism to get to the edge, to get to the perimeter. He's got the vision to run inside as well. And that's important, right? Vision is really important at the line of scrimmage, finding the creases, finding the lanes, finding the open grass, and he's got the athleticism to take it all the way from anywhere on the field. So with his track background, you like what that's going to do for him in terms of being a big play threat, but it all starts for him at the line of scrimmage, finding the opportunities and finding the creases. So to me, that's the big thing that stands out to me is his vision and ability to find the lanes. Obviously, with his type of athleticism, he can create plays when plays aren't there, and that's just got a little text there. Sorry. Um, where was I? Bell. Yeah, no, really, really like his game. Um, Obviously, the ability to make cuts at the line of scrimmage, to find the creases, that's a big thing for him, and that's not obviously, but that's my favorite thing about him is his ability to make those cuts at the line of scrimmage. I think that always bodes well for somebody who's not just relying on the offensive line to create uh, these big runs, but can create them on his own. That's a big thing for Bell. Um, Gosh, I'm getting text coming in. But yeah, you add Bell to this running back room where you've got, a pretty solid group. You've got Daniel Bray, you've got Racing Guillory, you've got Wayshawn Parker, and obviously it's going to be about, bringing those guys back. But you add Bell to this mix, and you really like the depth and playmaking potential of this running back room going into 26. I think Bell is the type of guy that I would not be surprised to earn some reps in year one at Utah. So that says a lot, but I think he's got that sort of game to do just that. So, all right, let me get to some of these questions here. If you've got questions, regardless of what it is, already addressed a few things throughout the show, but yeah, if you guys have questions, I certainly want to be able to answer some of them if you've got them. So I want to get to this one because this is a good question. In your opinion, should NIL rev share money go more towards high school recruits or transfer portal recruits? This is a great question because it's both, and it all depends on the makeup of your current roster and what you're projecting the next season. So it's not always going to be the transfer portal. It's not always going to be high school recruits. It all just sort of depends on the status of your roster going into next year and the makeup of it. So, for Utah this year, they got a pretty young roster, a group of players that, freshman, sophomore, that's the bulk of this roster. So it's a younger group. It makes more sense to utilize more of that money in the transfer portal to add experience to the roster in 2026 than it is to go and try to flip a lot of high school kids like they did last year, right? So that's sort of the balance here is you're trying to strike the right balance between what your current roster makeup is and adding the right blend to it. So some years, like I said, some years like last year, we remember last year, Utah flipped Bird Ficklin, Daniel Bray. They added Pupu Sepulona. They added Dion Mays, who ended up transferring and all that sort of stuff. But we remember that they added quite a few in the month of December in terms of adding commitments that month. And that hasn't been the case this year. They've added a couple, but not to the same extent, right? So it all just sort of depends on the roster makeup and what you're looking for as well. And I think given what changes have been made in terms of the recruiting calendar, moving the transfer portal back from December to January, I think is actually really helpful for programs to determine what sort of path they need to take, right? That's going to help them make these decisions earlier. It's going to give them a better idea, as you get to the early signing period, who you sign, who didn't sign that month, or during this early signing period, who's announcing that they're entering the transfer portal. These are all things that Utah and all these other programs are taking in. They're taking notes, they're getting prepared for the transfer portal. But again, to get to your question, it all just depends what you need. That's what it's all dependent upon is, if you've got a younger roster, you probably want some experience, which means you're going to spend more of your money in the transfer portal. Sometimes you've got a veteran group and you need to bring in a lot of younger guys to have that depth and guys that can be in the program. So you're going to spend more of your money there, but it all just depends. So it's a balancing act, but that's a great question. And I hope that addresses what you're looking for. I hope that's what you're looking for there. So we'll see. But that's my take is it all just sort of depends on your needs. Nathaniel Salmon, he is the tight end that was part of the International Pathway Program. Spent the summer with the Chargers for a couple weeks. Has had Utah, BYU, Arizona State, North Carolina visits. Not anticipate him committing to Utah. I think Utah has elected to turn their attention elsewhere. I think that means Utah is going to focus on adding a transfer portal tight end or two. So I do not anticipate Utah being all that interested in bringing in Salmon. So he came in on a visit and all that, but I do not anticipate Utah pursuing that commitment. So I think I hope that answers that. This one from Steven with a PH, buddy. We got to talk about that. Come on, man. Just kidding. Do the Utes plan on signing any high school DT kids? Well, they've just flipped one. So, like I said, the kid that they flipped today from Michigan State, Siale, he's listed as an edge defender, but he's 6'4", 250 pounds as a high schooler. And what that means for Utah, you're going to put on some weight and you're going to move inside. He has the athleticism, I think, to play outside potentially, but he is going to be a defensive tackle. I think he's going to be I think he's going to need time. He's going to need time to add that weight, but he's going to be, I think, when you get into year 2 and year 3, he's going to be a good one. I think with the defensive tackle group, I think it's really important to keep in mind Utah brought in 5 freshmen last class. We didn't see a lot of those guys this season, but that's because the physical demands, of that position are quite high. And, getting these guys a year in the program, a year in the strength and conditioning program, that's going to really benefit Carson Kafusi. That's really going to benefit Pupu Sepulona and Fameitau Siale, who is going to play defensive tackle. He may or may not continue to play that Rhino position, but his future is at defensive tackle. So you've got him. You've got Dylan Battle, who was the transfer freshman from LSU that they added last spring. You've got 5 freshmen in that group that are expected to step up into bigger roles next season. So I don't anticipate Utah being super active in adding not a transfer, but another high school defensive tackle. They added one today in Siale. But I think with what they're bringing back in Dallas Vakalahi and Jonalea Ea, you're expecting a lot of development out of those 5 freshmen, and I anticipate that being the focus for Utah getting into 2026. So that's what we've got there. Already addressed the Pula twins. Anticipate them flipping and going to TDS down there. That's the news there. Yeah, again, no, not really. I mean, I know you do. Obviously, Utah needs better play from the defensive tackles, but in terms of the bodies, they have plenty. It's just they're all young and they need time to develop, and that's going to be the focal point this season for that group. And Luther Ellis, you need development out of Carson Cafu, Dylan Battle, and Pupu Sepulona. That's what you're going to need from that group more than anything else. So you don't need defensive tackles in terms of bodies. You just need better play from that group. And I think giving that young group an entire year to redshirt and to work on their game, get where they need to be physically, that's going to benefit Utah and that group in 2026. So that's my thought on the tackle room. And again, they added another one in Siale. Oh, excuse me. Got the burps. Shout out to everybody. Hope everybody's got a little Ghost energy drink. Shout out to Ghost for the raspberry cream treat. All right. A healthy Hunter Andrews will be really good to have him back. Yes, he was going to be a pretty dynamic for Utah, or a pretty dynamic weapon for Utah. I think getting him back next year will be big for that tight end room, but he is more that you back type of tight end. Utah is looking for a Y type, a traditional, a Dallin Bentley type, that 6'4", 6'5", 250 pounder. That's the type that they're looking for, and they're looking for one that can come in and make an impact right away. So that was sort of the issue with Salmon. He's a developmental guy. You remember Thomas Yasmin, he needed 3-4 years in the program before he started to contribute, and that was sort of the projection with Salmon, and that's just not what Utah needs in that room next season. They need somebody that can come in right away and make an impact, and that's why you're going to see Utah get into the portal and look to add a tight end that can do that for them next year. So, but Hunter Andrews, getting him back next year, that's big. So, spoke with him a little bit a couple weeks ago. He's doing great. He's recovering well, and I think he's going to be somebody that I think will be a big part of the offense. I should have read through this question, but before I just threw it up here, what percentage of NIL deals get reevaluated at the end of each season? Most of them, if not all of them. A lot of them do. In fact, a lot of them do. It's you could probably count on your hands the number of NIL deals that don't have to be reevaluated at the end of each season. Unfortunately, that's the status of college football right now. Is you just have these 1 year deals, and that's just how it is. So until NCAA and players unionize and we get to collective bargaining where you can start to enforce multi-year contracts and give each side some teeth in this, that's what it's going to be. So outside of just a handful of NIL deals, almost all of them are reevaluated after the year. Jackson Butters. Are we looking to retain Dampier and Bird? I mentioned something at the beginning that I think good news was coming for Utah, not necessarily related to recruiting, and it centers around this. It does, and I think there's a decent chance that we'll see some news on that front. I actually like Utah's ability to bring both of them back. I think there's a good chance that we see both Dampier and Bird back in 2026. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I think there's a good chance that we see both. So that was the latest that I heard on that front. So good things are happening there. If Benny plays strong safety and Teo is gone, who will play nickel? Well, you've got to remember you've got a couple other safeties in that room. You've got Rabbit Evans, who is coming back in 2026, or at least intended to. You've got Brock Fanoi Moana. You've got Davis Andrews coming back from his mission. Now, he could potentially move to linebacker. I know he grew a little bit on his mission where he's now 6'3", 210, 215. So he that Chase Hansen type. With Benny, he's so versatile that it's just figuring out where he fits best. If Teo is gone, I like Benny the most at free safety, but you've got Nate Tillman who could potentially play that role as well and allow Benny to move to strong safety or nickel. So it's going to be interesting to see how it sorts out, but I like what Utah has in that room, regardless of whether Teo is gone or not. Utah's going to have some options there at that safety spot. I don't have a list of wide receivers just yet, but that'll be a focal point. I think Utah will be looking to add one bona fide wide receiver, somebody that is either a high-end talent, somebody that they were high on coming out of high school, or somebody with production to their name. I think that's going to be a big point of emphasis for Utah as well. How excited about Kane Archer? Yeah, you should be excited. You've got a dude that's, he was a 4-star kid, as a sophomore, and obviously as time wore on, things, his recruiting his rating came down, but he's still a guy that I think really fits well with this offense. Productive, super productive, over 65 touchdowns, ton of yards, dual threat ability, a lot to like there. Adding him to Mike Johnson in the class, Utah is really adding, good pieces to that quarterback room. So the depth there at quarterback looks really good with those two. All right, let's see here. Let's talk about Utah's portal needs. Obviously, with Utah and that offensive line, potentially having to replace all 5 starters, you've got an impact freshman coming in Kelvin Obot, but you're going to need to bring in, an offensive line transfer or 2 that can come in with experience and add to this mix. You like what Utah has in terms of the depth that they've had in that room, guys that have been in the program, have been in the system for a couple years now, and you like what that means. I think that's going to really help Utah in replacing the interior line where you've got Solatoa Moia, you've got a Keith Olson, guys that can step up at guard, but you're going to need somebody to step up at tackle, at center, and potentially another tackle spot as well, depending on what Caleb Lomu does. But if you get Lomu back, that's a big boost to 2026 on the offensive line there. But that's going to be a focal point for Utah, adding experience through the transfer portal at offensive line. I mentioned another spot, tight end. I think that's going to be a big position of need for Utah. Is adding a tight end that can come in, a traditional wide type of tight end, a 6'4", 250 pounder in the mold of a Dallin Bentley, somebody who can really be nasty as a blocker, can add a little bit as a pass catcher as well. That's going to be a focal point as well. Wide receiver, I think Utah certainly wants to add at least one there. And then, it's all going to depend on what else shakes out with their own roster retention. But as of right now, those are the top three positions, in my opinion, for Utah going into the transfer portal. You're probably going to need two offensive linemen from the portal, going to need one tight end, and then you're going to need a receiver at the very least. But I think Utah's in a good spot with a lot of the roster, and then it all just kind of depends on who else, on what happens with the retention. But that's going to be the transition for Utah this week. So obviously getting to signing day today, you've got the signing period open until Friday. We'll see what else, finalizes and crystallizes with the class. But then Utah is going to transition to roster retention and making sure that they're getting key guys back for 2026. And that all starts with Devin Dampier. He is the first domino to fall. And then from there, Utah will start to work on the rest of the roster and bringing guys back. So after that, that's when they'll have a pretty good idea of where the roster sits and where they need to move forward and where to attack in the transfer portal. But at this point, again, top three positions of need for Utah going into the transfer portal next month: offensive line, tight end, and receiver. A lot of questions about Witt. I get it. I don't have an update. He's got till Friday to make a decision or at least notify Utah. So that's what I'll say on Witt. It's been a week on that, so I'm a little sensitive, a little touchy subject there. I don't want to answer it all the time because it's all I've answered this week. But he's got till Friday to make his decision. Yeah, I think Wayshawn, I think he's going to be a big priority. Yeah, I think Utah would love to have him back for sure. So let's see here. Anything new on the text? And then, something to consider when you look at Utah's class this year, you compare it to last year. Obviously, you have a 5-star in the class in Kelvin Obot. You've got another 4-star blue chip guy in Mataalii Benjamin. You're working on a big flip of Salesi Moa. You add him to the mix potentially. That really would bode well for Utah's class and give it a big boost here, in these next couple of days. So that's the big focus is Salesi Moa and working to flip him. If you can add him to the mix, you're adding somebody that can come in year one and make an impact for Utah on either side of the ball, but probably wide receiver first and foremost. So that's going to be the focus for Utah is Salesi Moa to try and finish out this class. But considering what Utah dealt with last year, 5-7, you saw the class last year and what it looked like. It was you had Christian Thatcher as the headliner, JJ Buchanan actually as the headliner as the 4-star in the class. But you look at what Utah did this year with the 10-2 record. I think that that's going to really benefit them as we get into 2027 and the recruiting there. And I think that's really going to help Utah. They haven't done a whole lot in recruiting 2027. They have one commit in Kingston Parks, the wide receiver out of Texas, the younger brother of Money Parks. And that's a great addition to start with. I love Kingston's game, 6'3", 180 pounds, good athlete. I think he's going to be a nice piece to start with in that class. But now that you've got a 10-2 season, number 15 in the country, I think that's going to really bode well for Utah as they start to also transition not only to the transfer portal in January, but also turning the page to 2027 recruiting and getting going there. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how this year's success translates to 2027 next year's class. There's some good players coming up in 2027 and 2028. Having success this year really helps Utah in parlaying that into future recruiting success. And that's going to be a really interesting dynamic over the next couple of months to see how Utah gets going in 2027 beyond Kingston Parks. But getting into the portal as well, being 10-2, and hopefully bringing back the bulk of this roster, I think that's going to be big for Utah, getting into the portal and adding some key pieces as well. So currently, again, Utah's class currently sits mid-30s. That can fluctuate here over the next little bit, depending on what happens with some of these flips. But overall quality is really good. I think Utah ranks around top 25 in terms of the average rating at the moment. And again, depending on what happens with some of these flip potentials, we'll see what happens there. But wanted to get this up. Appreciate everybody for joining me for an hour here, and we'll see. So, any other final questions? You guys can hit me up on Twitter. You guys know where to find me. But really, thank everybody for hopping on. Hope I answered some good questions, and we'll see there. Last text here that I get: Colin Campbell not signing till February, so that'll be one to keep an eye on. So he's not going to sign over these next couple of days, but Colin Campbell, offensive tackle commit, not signing till February. I would certainly keep an eye on Utah there. But that'll do it for me. Appreciate everybody for hopping on and all that. And we'll be back tomorrow, maybe later tonight, to get the final tally on the class and all that. But appreciate everybody for hopping on.